And it is that while the lethality of their power is greater than ever, their capacity to impose control over the politically awakened masses of the world is at a historical low. Namely, in earlier times, it was easier to control 1 million people. Literally, it was easier to control 1 million people than physically to kill 1 million people. Today, it is infinitely easier to kill 1 million people than to control 1 million people.
The smoke in the air of our Concord bridges and Pearl Harbors is always smelled first by the farmers who come from their simple homes to find the fire and fight.
But if you embark on instituting a society where government protects you from yourself, you're in big trouble, and that's what they're doing. That's all government is force. I mean, do you have a choice about paying Medicare taxes? This government uses force to mold behavior or mold the economy. They've overstepped the bounds, and they violated the whole concept of our revolution and our Constitution.
I'm Joe Joseph, along with my good buddy Tim Watts. Tonight, folks, we're going to shift gears a little bit and go on the health side of the house. And tonight, my guest is Dr. Jason Pujo, DMD, graduate of Boston University and the Tufts University School of Dental Medicine. And the reason why I have him here tonight is because you won't find many dentists like Jason, and especially in the United States. You may find them a little bit more in Europe, but here in the United States, you have an epidemic in this country where you have dentists addicted to fluoride. So we're going to break the mold a little bit, as we have a subject matter expert tonight that's going to talk about his findings as far as what fluoride does to the human body. And we'll also get into some other aspects of dental medicine tonight on the broadcast. And if we have time, we'll even talk a little Second Amendment. Oh, yeah. So without further ado, Jason, welcome to the broadcast.
Thanks, Joseph. Thanks for having me tonight. It's good to be here.
Well, it's great to have you. Now, let's start off. What made you look into this? Like, what perked your interest into investigating fluoride?
Well, it came as part of the whole awakening process, which really has started a couple of years ago. Probably could have awoken sooner than that, but I don't know. I didn't. When I first heard of things like Bilderberg Group and whatnot, I think my reaction was typical for a lot of people. When you first hear about something like the depopulation agenda, your thinking is, that'll never happen. They'll never be able to do that. So I first heard about it probably back in 04 or 05 when I first heard about this stuff. But like I said, didn't really wake up until about 2010. Once I started waking up, I heard a lot of the fluoride stuff. And, at the time I was still a believer in fluoride and what it's supposed to do. And, just kind of discounted it. Mostly from my own experience. I grew up in a town that had been fluoridated since the 50s. I heard some of these, heard the claims, and I didn't really see any effects on myself. So, and I think that's probably the natural reaction most of us as dentists have, is we don't see any overt effects. You don't see, you don't see rashes or something like that. You don't see any gross medical effects. So, right. So you just kind of discount it, like, no. And you trust your educators. You trust the people that you went to school to learn how to do this stuff. And, you don't really see any reason to question it. But what sparked me to start looking into it was hearing Russell Blaylock, which probably a lot of the audience is familiar with, the neurosurgeon. Yeah. And he went into it in a level that, really started to explain what it does, and in an interview I heard a couple of years ago. And so I figured, well, if the neurosurgeon is saying that it's bad, then I better look into it. Because I don't know if people are familiar, but neurosurgeons, they spend a 9-year residency learning how to do what they do. And That's quite a lot of schooling. So I figured, well, you know what, that's more than what I've had. And it's in an area of the body that I, have studied a little bit, but nowhere near what he has. So I figured, well, I better look into it. So I started. Yeah.
Well, that's great. So it was Russell Blaylock that got you down that path then.
Right.
To actually look into it. Well, that's interesting for sure. You were talking about your education. And Timmy and I have we've had doctors on the broadcast before and have also discussed the curriculum and how it's written at the college level and again in medical school. Mm-hmm. And what you end up finding out is it's the pharmaceutical companies that are driving this thing. And they have a vested interest in fluoride as well. Don't think that they don't like fluoride. I mean, heck, the main ingredient in Prozac is fluoride.
Right. So, there's a lot of, like I said, vested interests in how the curriculums are constructed in schools. Mm-hmm. Both medical and dental. And
but again, students at that time in their lives really have no reason to distrust their teachers, their professors. Mm-hmm.
That's
so,
it.
I mean, I can totally understand where you're coming from there is that, well, of course, why would I think any other way? Here's this saged, all-omniscient Swami that sits upon the pedestal in medical school, and why would I not believe him? I mean, this guy's got the life experience to tell us, hey, this is the way it is. Okay, well, I guess that's the way it is.
That's it.
Yeah, well, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, your primary goals when you're in these schools is to learn your trade basically and get out so that way you can get working, and the idea to question your training as you're going along, for the majority of us, it just isn't there. So
now, Timmy, you haven't used fluoride toothpaste for a very long time, right?
Oh, absolutely not. Yeah. See, I'm one of these people, Jason, that's immune compromised. I came down sick when I was 30 years old. So for 24 years, I have not used either, fluoride nor toothpaste because I just don't trust that they don't put it in toothpaste. So when I brush my teeth, it takes me a little longer, but I just a brush, some warm water and then some cold water. And I've been fluoride free for 24 years.
Yeah. And you probably don't have any problems at all, do you?
No, not at all. Strangely enough. But it's heartening to see that, you're getting into this. I mean, I wish you were in my area because you'd be my dentist. I tell you what.
In a heartbeat. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that feel the same way. But at the same time, do you notice that now that you've taken this stance, that have you seen any sort of drop in the amount of patients or any trepidation by any current patients you may have?
Not really, no. I mean, we haven't come out with like a big banner ad or something like that.
We're fluoride free.
Yeah, exactly. We would like to. The local newspaper that we used to publish monthly advertising in, the publisher passed away this past year, and the family shut the newspaper down. So, but if that was still going on, we would have done that. But we are telling the patients as they come in, and really we haven't had any backlash yet. And I'm going to leave it up to the patient to decide. I'm going to tell them, look, this is what I find. This is what the studies show. And ultimately, if the patient still wants to use it, hey, you know what? You're making an informed decision. I don't want to go into a medical tyranny model one way or the other. I don't want to force fluoride, but then I also don't want to restrict it either. Say, no, you can't have it at all,
What do the mind-numb people that you tell this to for the first time, I mean, what is the reaction to someone? They're like, oh, really? I didn't know that? Or, is it outrage? Or what is the reaction?
No, that's pretty much it. No outrage, just more curiosity than anything. So, and nobody seems to miss it. That's the thing.
Yeah. Well,
so now let me ask you this. How long have you given your patients the option to forego fluoride?
Really just the past few months. I really wanted to have all my ducks in a row as far as reviewed research and then exploring options for people and for solutions for people. So, we went and took it upon ourselves to buy a bunch of different fluoride-free toothpastes, test them for their pH because that's also critical in preventing cavities. And, find some solutions for them so they could filter the water if they wanted to and go from there.
Wow, fantastic. And tonight, folks, we'll get into all that when we come back from break, and in the next segment, we're going to talk about the dangers of fluoride. So because some people out there, they just don't know. So we'll get into it with Dr. Jason Pujo. That's PujoDentistry.com. And we'll even take your questions. What the heck? So stay tuned, folks. It's going to be a rip-roar night as Joe Joseph tries to take phone calls. Good grief. Don't go away, folks. We'll be back. Ha-ha! Orion Talk Radio welcomes another new host to the airwaves with the Super Dave Show. Morning radio gets an extra kick as Super Dave starts the day off at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Check out the Super Dave Show weekday mornings right before Rudy Z on Orion Talk Radio, 7 a.m. Boy, guys, I've heard of commercial-free radio, but this is ridiculous. Oh, boom, ching.
We're back.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Ha! My guest tonight, folks, is Dr. Jason Pujo, his website, PujoDentistry.com. And the nice thing about Jason here is the fact that he's gone out of his way, regardless of the fact that, he's got the diploma on the wall and he's got all the credentials. He's gone out of his way to research the other side of fluoride and come to some very interesting conclusions. Now, Jason, I don't know if you're familiar with the fluoridealert.org, the Fluoride Action Network.
Yes.
Okay, they give out 10 facts about fluoride, and I want to get your opinion on this. First of all, fact number 1. 97% of Western Europe has chosen fluoride-free water. Why is that, and do you agree with that?
Well, I'd say they've probably chosen it because it's not necessary to use it, and I do agree with that. That there's no clinical reason to use it. We have a better understanding of how decay works now than we did back in the 40s and 50s when it was being promoted for water fluoridation. The early studies were being conducted.
Right.
It's not necessary. So,
Well, here's the question then. Now, since you talk about that, does fluoride cause long-term tooth and gum damage? Would you say?
It does if it happens when the teeth are forming, and what you see is a condition called fluorosis. For most people, you're going to see little white spots on their teeth. Sometimes you can get little brown spots, and that's how it manifests in the teeth, and that's what you see. You don't really see in fluoridated water extreme examples of fluorosis, but in areas where it occurs naturally as calcium fluoride and it's a high percentage in the water supply, you will see deformations of the tooth structure. But you're not going to see that typically in a fluoridated community. It's pretty tightly regulated, even though it shouldn't even be in there in the first place. Mm-hmm. I have the Massachusetts, because we're in Massachusetts, so I have a copy of the standard operating procedure for water departments, and if it goes over the 1.2 parts per million level, there's certain protocols that they have to follow. They have to call the state. They have to notify people that they've gone over. They've got to bleed it from the water supply and get it back down to the correct level. So so any kind of overdose, so to speak, of fluoride in the water supply, you're not going to typically see that in a fluoridated community. But you will see, I was going to say, you will see fluorosis. You will see white spots and sometimes brown spots on people's teeth.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I have fluorosis. And, I grew up in a town where you have fluoridated water. It's just the way it was. But, here's the thing is that how do you know if it's affecting you? You know what I mean? And here's my big problem. And Timmy, weigh in on this too, will you? Why would we want a pharmaceutical in our water when you have to go, most pharmaceuticals, you got to go get a prescription. Mm-hmm. So if that's the case, Tim, then why do they just carte blanche throw this stuff in the water?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Good question. There's so many things about fluoride now that, Jason, you've probably seen some of the new studies that came out. I think just this last year? They were saying that fluoride is now linked to IQ retardation. I mean, it can lower your IQ, folks. Mm-hmm. If so again, yeah, good point, Joe. Why do you need a prescription to get it, but yet they'll freely put it in our water? And another thing, there's some new research now that's linking fluoride to cancer. Over 10,000 cancer cases that they're trying to link fluoride to as well. So the folks in Europe are much better off without it.
Yeah, and their thing is that rather than mandating fluoride treatment for the whole population, Western Europe allows individuals the right to choose or refuse fluoride, much like what you're doing at your practice, Jason. You're giving people the option, which is really all people want. At the end of the day, give me a choice, Give me the straight poop. What am I dealing with? And let me make the call. I don't need you to make my decision for me. All I need you to do as a subject matter expert is to give me both sides. Tell me the pros and the cons. Just like whenever you see these pharmaceutical ads now on television, make sure you consult your doctor before. Well, yeah, what the heck do you think your doctor's going to tell you, All he's shoveled all this stuff shoveled from the pharmaceutical companies. That's what he's going to peddle because that's what he knows, especially the new ones now coming out of school. Yeah. They're not really doctors today. I hate to say it. I mean, and no knock on you, Jason, at all. What I'm trying to say is that the education has changed. Probably even so. Now, when did you graduate?
I graduated in 97.
Okay, so probably even, after you, it's probably gotten a whole lot worse. I mean, at least, based on at least what I've seen. I mean, and my doctor, now, he's not a dentist, my primary care physician, there's been a lot of scrutiny, of course, with the prescription monitoring program and everything like that. And mine was actually sanctioned by the Virginia Board of Health for, prescribing too many opioid medications and all this kind of stuff. And all he was trying to do is be a doctor. Follow his Hippocratic oath, which is put the needs of my patient before myself,
Exactly.
And so now doctors are vilified for doing so. So then you get this fear in you as a doctor, like, gosh, if I treat this guy the way I want to treat him, I'm going to end up losing my practice, losing my license, getting fined, or anything like that. Now, we're seeing that a lot on the medical side, the medical doctor side. Have you noticed any scrutiny in the dental side of the house in regards to that?
No, I really haven't seen anything like that yet.
Good.
And even with same thing with socialized medicine, most countries around the world, except for like Britain or whatnot, they really don't have a lot of socialized dentistry. So we're keeping our fingers crossed on that front too.
Yeah, for real. Now I'm going to give you fact number 2. This is fact number 2 out of 10, folks. FluorideAlert.org, and the article is Fluoride Facts. Now, fact number 2: fluoride is the only chemical added to drinking water for the purpose of medication to prevent tooth decay. And it says all other treatment chemicals that are added to treat the water is to improve the water's quality and safety, which fluoride doesn't do. And this is one of the reasons why most of Europe has rejected fluoridation. For instance, in Germany, the argumentation of the Federal Ministry of Health against the general permission of fluoride of drinking water is the problematic nature of compulsion medication. In Belgium, it is, quote, the fundamental position of the drinking water sector that it is not its task to deliver medicinal treatment to people, This is solely the responsibility of the health services. And in Luxembourg, quote, in our view, drinking water isn't the suitable way for medicinal treatment, and the people needing an addition of fluoride, and in this way they can decide which way is right for them. So you see these other countries, these big countries, folks, that are making the shift away from fluoridation and instead allowing people to have the choice. And that's what's most important here. Folks, we'll be right back after these messages. Don't go away. Much more to come with Dr. Pujo where we come. Welcome back, folks. You know, before we continue, I have a little shout out I have to give out. It's a very special occasion for my family today as Greg Joseph is listening intently to this radio broadcast direct from the hospital room as his wife is in labor right now. That's a way to go, Greg. Be there for the missus. Hoorah! And Timmy, I think you got some...
Sexy midwife. He makes this sexy midwife. I hear he's sitting on his wife's stomach right now, pulling up on her head, trying to induce labor.
Yeah, I know. And hey, you know what? That's all well and good. Apparently, he has good success with that. So I'm
just stunned that the state of Massachusetts let him procreate. So, just saying.
Well, good luck, Greg and Melissa. We're thinking about you down here, and all the best. It's and guys, it's a boy. Thank goodness. we want the boys. Boys are good. That's right. Just got B. So cool. Good looking out. So we're talking about fluoride, and our guest tonight is Dr. Jason Pujo, PujoDentistry.com. And hey, Timmy, you brought it. You were doing a little research today and found something that linked fluoride to cancer.
Oh yeah, if you do a search for fluoride and cancer, you'll see that there's some new research coming out by a guy that's trying to say, 10,000 cases of cancer, they think linked to fluoride. You know, I mean, what do you expect for something that's rat poison, you know?
Yeah, for real. And I'm looking at some of these dangers now, you know, and I peruse some articles too. This is all stuff that, you know, we've kind of looked into in the past. But how far did you go in your research to go down the other side, Jason, as far as the dangers of fluoride? How extensive did you really get into it?
Well, I started purchasing studies, and by a study, it's about $40 a piece. So
you're talking peer reviewed?
Yeah. You can go online. You get an account at Science Direct. It's part of Elsevier, which is a clearinghouse because if you go to PubMed, you know, they've got summaries, but a lot of these studies they don't have, or I couldn't find a lot, or you just find summaries. You can definitely find the ones that say fluoride is okay, but you can't. It's harder to find the ones that show a problem with fluoride. Especially since a lot of the research is now coming out of China too, which they don't fluoridate in China, but they sell us fluoride for using in our water supplies. But yeah, definitely it did run across, not the study you're talking about, Tim, but it did run across studies that did mention that you know, it can be a carcinogen because of the way it interferes with gene transcription, chromosome replication. You know, so it interferes with how genes are copying themselves, and that's when you start creating mutations, and you can lead to cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Wow!
And you got the other study. You know, talking about the IQ retardation, and that's just huge. You know, and we all talk about, gee, why is America so dumb? Well, there you go.
Well, that's also tied in with thyroid dysfunction too, because it interferes with the iodine process in the thyroid, and you need to have the correct iodine levels in order for cognitive development to occur properly.
Wow. Now that's something I didn't know and understand. So even at an early age, you know, I think that's why it's so important at an early age that you keep fluoride away from your child. Now, would you say that it's more detrimental to a child's development than, say, as an adult? Would you say as an adult that you're able to absorb that fluoride more without it having such an adverse reaction? Or is it just as dangerous to an adult as it is to a child?
Well, it still has its problems for an adult, but definitely more dangerous to a child, especially if you're using fluoridated water supply, because that's the thing with dumping any kind of medicine into a water supply. You're not dosing it properly for your patient. You're getting a one level suits all, and that's not the way it works. Every other pharmaceutical is dosed according to weight, and this one isn't. So yeah, it does cause. It does have a greater effect on infants and toddlers and children than it is going to have on an adult.
Unbelievable. Let me bring this up, too. This is fact number 3 on fluoridealert.org's list. It says, contrary to previous belief, fluoride has minimal benefit when swallowed. It says, when water fluoridation began in the 40s and the 50s, dentists believed that fluoride was a nutrient that needed to be swallowed in order to be most effective. This belief, however, has been discredited by an extensive body of modern research. According to the National Academy of Sciences, fluoride is not a nutrient, i.e. humans don't need fluoride for the prevention of disease, including tooth decay. Moreover, the Centers for Disease Control have now conceded that fluoride's predominant effect is topical. In other words, any benefits that accrue from the use of fluoride come from the direct application of fluoride to the outside of the teeth after they have erupted into the mouth, and not from ingestion. There's no need, therefore, to expose all other tissues to fluoride by swallowing it. So is there any benefit, first of all, Jason, to fluoride based on your research and based on your professional opinion? Does fluoride provide any benefit to the teeth at all?
It can, yes. If you want to use it, it can have a topical effect. When I was in dental school, the dean of Tufts at the time had developed a protocol for strengthening teeth for cancer patients, for patients that were receiving head and neck radiation therapy, because that destroys the saliva glands in the process, and the decay runs rampant in somebody who has a mouth that's that dry. It even happens with people that are on a lot of pharmaceuticals. There's a huge number of pharmaceuticals that cause a dry mouth, and you will see cavities increase. So to treat these people, they came up with a protocol of an extremely high dose of topical fluoride, and it really did strengthen the teeth. It made them pretty much indestructible. And in that situation, you could argue the benefit of that. But for your average person, it really has a negligible effect, and you don't want to use those high levels of fluoride if you're not dealing with a potentially deadly disease that you're trying to fight too.
Right.
So you have your trade-off there. I was like, okay, well, that might, that's going to be a benefit. It does work topically, but again, the need is questionable. If you can keep the pH, this is one of the keys that I ran across. If you can keep the pH of the mouth in a neutral to acidic environment, neutral to basic environment, so neutral to alkaline, the bacteria that cause cavities shut down. The bacteria that cause cavities are acid-loving bacteria, and they need to be in an acidic environment to function. Otherwise, they just shut down, and it'd be very, very, very difficult to get a cavity if you can maintain the proper pH inside the mouth. So some people, which explains why when we see patients, some people just come in and they, no matter what they do, they brush, they floss, they rinse, and they'll get cavities. Periodically they'll come in and they'll have another cavity no matter what they do. Well, the problem is the pH in their mouth, and that's pretty easy to fix with the right toothpaste and the right rinse, with a simple baking soda rinse that you can mix up on your own at home. So most people don't need topical fluoride for their mouth. But yes, it does have an effect. Now, the way that we thought it worked, like I said, I graduated in 97. What we learned in school was that it gets incorporated into the structure of the teeth as the tooth is forming. And it does, but its effect is negligible. But we didn't learn that. We learned that that's what makes the tooth stronger. It makes it more receptive to picking up calcium and rebuilding itself. But in 99, so 2 years after I graduated, that study that you referenced came out that said, no, it doesn't have any effect at all systemically. It's all topical. So there's no reason to have it in the water supply. Now, that was back in 99. And for point of reference, back in 99, I wasn't working full-time quite yet. So I had time to read like the Journal of the American Dental Association, some of the other journals on a regular basis. And there was like no mention of this study as far as I can remember. So
that's unbelievable. Yeah, that's unbelievable that we know now, that these studies have come out, that they're showing more and more that fluoride's effect on teeth, it's topical only, that ingesting it does no good, yet they continue to fluoridate the water supply. It makes me ask, why, If not for the teeth, then for what? What are you trying to do? And it always takes me back to that dumbing down of America. They want the public dumbed down. Folks, we'll be right back after these messages. More with Dr. Jason Pujo when we come back. Don't forget that you can take Orion Talk Radio with you wherever you go by listening to us on your smartphone with the TuneIn app. Just download the free software, then do a search for Orion Talk Radio. Save us as a preset. Then you can take Orion Talk Radio with you anytime, anywhere. Orion Talk Radio on TuneIn, a must-have app for your smartphone. Joe Joseph here along with Tim Watts and our special guest tonight, Dr. Jason Pujo of Pujo Dentistry. That's PujoDentistry.com. And we've been talking about, the dangers of fluoride, the effects of ingesting it versus, brushing your teeth with it. Are there some benefits? Well, yeah. And I guess there's a silver lining in every cloud, Jason. Isn't that right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, hard to say with fluoride, but, I guess it does work for the teeth in some aspects. But as you said, is it really necessary?
I'm finding no.
Good. Well, that's good to know. And for the listeners out there, you make the informed decision for yourself. Okay? You do the research for yourself. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me at the freedom link at centurylink.net. I'll be glad to forward your questions onto Jason. Or Jason, on your website, do you have a contact page or something like that where people could email you?
No, we don't have a direct contact form. There's a form for making appointments, but
okay. Well, if you want to make appointments
come on down.
Come on down. That's right.
Just give out your cell phone number. What the heck?
Yeah, come on. Just put it out there, Jason. Hey. Now, here's another fact. There are better ways of delivering fluoride than adding it to water. So what are some of the ways that you can deliver fluoride safely and effectively if you had to, Jason?
Well, other than toothpaste, there's topical fluoride varnish, which is fairly safe way to deliver it, although it is a very high concentration. Again, I really would steer away from using it with kids. But if somebody comes in with a sensitive tooth, it actually does work. It does help reduce the sensitivity of exposed root surfaces. So so that's another way to go about delivering fluoride in a relatively safe manner. And again, it's going to be sodium fluoride pharmaceutical grade sodium fluoride as opposed to the hydrofluorosilicic or hexafluorosilicic acid that's put in the water supply.
So let me ask you this. What's the difference between the two? From a standpoint, let me ask, from a standpoint of, why do they use a different type of fluoride? And, is there a different effect on the body based on your research?
Well, that's the really shocking thing and surprising thing is where they get this fluoride from. because we're all under the assumption that it's the same sodium fluoride that's manufactured for use in dental products, and it's not. This compound, this it goes by a few different names: hexafluorosilicic acid, hydrofluorosilicic acid, fluosilicic acid. At any rate, that's harvested from the phosphate fertilizer industry. And what they do is they have an evaporative concentration process where they concentrate the phosphate fertilizer into powder, pellets, whatever they do. But as they're doing it, they're outgassing the fluoride compounds and boiling them off. But they can't release that into the atmosphere. They have to collect it, so they have to pass it through wet scrubbers. The problem came from when it was being just sent up smokestacks. Farmers around these facilities were having a lot of die-off of vegetation. And I think they even had animal problems, if I remember the studies correctly. At any rate, so they had to put in wet scrubbers, which spray a water stream and collect all the gases that are outgassing. And then that's it. That's your hexafluorosilicic acid. Now, there is a difference. I'll go into this because I had one of my patients actually was involved with water treatment. I'll leave it at that. He was telling us that when the stuff was coming out of Texas, and also Florida is another state that has facilities that produce this stuff. He was saying it was absolutely pure. There wasn't any. There weren't any other compounds in the solution. It was pure hexafluorosilicic acid. Now, like I said, a lot of it's coming out of China. It ain't so pure. He was telling me about this goo sludge that was forming in the tanks and in the delivery pumps, and they had no idea what it was.
Wow.
So that's where you're going to get the radiologicals, you're going to get whatever else they're sending over. So
isn't that interesting, Timmy? I mean, the fact that they're getting this from China now, this is from the same country that is pretty much putting antifreeze in their baby formula.
Yeah. Paint, you bet. I mean, as soon as I heard China, they won't put it in their water, but they're shipping it to us. Like, yeah, I'm down on that deal.
Yep.
Yeah, and then what else are they putting in there, especially to form this sludge or whatever? Of course, to me, it doesn't matter how pure it is. You're still you're still medicating the water is what you're doing. I mean, think about this for a second. In oral form, and ingesting this, these quantities of fluoride, it mellows you out. I mean, it's used as an antidepressant. Prozac. That's fluoride. So I mean, to me, because there's minimal dental benefit, as a matter of fact, minimal to zero dental benefit from ingesting it, then again, you have to ask yourself, why? Why would you continue to put it in the water when studies contradict it? And is it because they have to? Because like the fertilizer industry relies so heavily on the municipalities buying this waste product? Because that's what it is, right, Jason?
Right.
Yeah, it's a waste product.
It's toxic waste, yeah.
So then what do you do with it? If you're not putting it in water, what do you do with it? And that I guess that would be the question that a lot of people would have. Then what do you do with it? Almost like nuclear waste. We have it sitting in pools. Our cooling pool capacity, we're 40% over capacity at our nuclear power plants. And they have no place to put this stuff. They're going to put it in Yucca Mountain, and that got shut down because, oops, it's right on a fault line. That's probably not such a good idea. But the fact is that what are you going to do? Do you throw it on a rocket and try and shoot it into the sun? Well, what if one of those rockets malfunction? Yeah. Well, the same with fluoride. What are you going to do with this stuff if you're not putting it in the water? What do you think, Jason?
Well, there are a lot of industrial uses for fluoride, but I don't think the market's big enough to support all the stuff that they're producing. So, again, the other options would be to store it or come up with some other process to eliminate it or, turn it into some other compound that isn't going to be as toxic.
This is fascinating stuff. Now, folks, in hour number 2, we're going to get a little bit into fillings and the dangers associated with certain types of fillings. And maybe, Jason, in hour number 2, you can give what your recommendations would be, because I've gotten a lot of questions just since the show began about types of fillings, specifically, the amalgam and the mercury content. There's a lot of people out there that are concerned about amalgam fitting. So in hour number 2, we will discuss that. Folks, don't forget the Freedom Link is now 5 days a week. And, of course, we have Conspiracy Chronicles on the weekends. So you can catch us now on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 9 to 10 p.m. and Tuesdays and Thursdays now at our new time, 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, Timmy, a lot of good information tonight so far. Some of this stuff, this is the nice thing about having a good, intelligent discussion, because you don't typically see in media both sides being presented at one time. You know what I mean? It's always one extreme to the other. People don't normally have that present both choices and make your own choice, No,
heavens no. They'll never do that to us anymore. I mean, you get one side, you get usually the corporate side, and that's about it. So no wonder.
Alternative media, too.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they do, and they'll take the opposite side and of things. And believe me, I'm not an advocate for fluoride, folks. I'm an advocate for free will, for freedom of choice, for informed decision-making.
Yep.
And in order to make an informed decision, you have to know both sides of the issue. So
if you want to know more about fluoride, there is a good book. I mentioned this earlier, Joe. If you want to know some more about fluoride, folks, there's a book called The Fluoride Deception by Christopher Bryson, Bryson. That ought to be some interesting reading in there.
Absolutely. And, one of the things, of course, the damages or dangers to fluoride, some of the organs that it can damage or risk is the brain. We talked about IQ levels dropping.
Yep.
Again, I'm going to recap this. The risk to the thyroid gland, because it is an endocrine disruptor and, messes with the iodine level in the thyroid. So that's a problem. Also to bones, when you have fluorosis, especially in the bones, it causes them to be brittle and break. There's some really drastic cases in a lot of countries overseas, especially in like third world countries, where people have fluorosis of the bones, and the risk of bone cancer and risk to kidney patients. So there's a lot of health risks associated with fluoride. Folks, hour number 1 is done. Hour number 2 is on the way. When we come back, we'll talk about fillings, and we'll also take your questions. Lots to talk about. So stay tuned. The Freedom Link will be back after the news. It's hour number 2 of the Freedom Link here on the Orion Talk Radio Network on this 4th day of December 2012. I'm Joe Joseph, along with Tim Watts. Our guest tonight, Dr. Jason Pujo of Pujo Dentistry. That's pujodentistry.com. Anybody in the Massachusetts area, especially in the eastern Massachusetts area, go ahead, get your teeth cleaned. Even in western Massachusetts is a small state.
I was just going to say, anybody can drive to see him.
It takes me that long to get to Walmart, come on. It's good. Yeah. So make sure that you look him up if you're in the New England area. And, he's a guy that's going to give you the straight poop and let you make your own informed decision. And my hat is off to you, Jason, for doing that for your patients. Now, in hour number 1, we were talking about fluoride. Now, before we move on, there's a couple of other items that you guys wanted to address. Timmy, you wanted to discuss the IG Farben link to fluoride.
Doesn't it always go back to Nazi Germany and somehow IG Farben? I tell you what, they are involved in so many nefarious things in this world. But in 1939, under the Alted Agreement, the American Aluminum Company, Alcoa, then the world's largest producer of sodium fluoride, along with the Dow Chemical Company, transferred all their technology to Germany. And Colgate, Kellogg, DuPont, and many other companies eventually signed cartel agreements with IG Farben, and they created a powerful lobby group that was dubbed the Fluoride Mafia. So these people were really big on pushing fluoride, but here's why. At the end of World War II, the U.S. government sent Charles Eliot Perkins. He was a research worker in chemistry, biochemistry, physiology, and pathology. And they sent him over to Germany to take charge of the IG Farben chemical plants. And the German chemists told him at the time of a scheme that they had devised during the war and had been adapted by the German general staff. It was the German chemists. What they did was they put sodium fluoride in the water because it was something that they used in German and Russian prisoner of war camps to make the prisoners stupid and docile.
Yeah, I was going to say docile for sure.
And comes right out of IG Farben. Did anything good ever come out of IG Farben?
Bare aspirin.
I was just going to say, but is that something good?
Well, I'm just saying, hey.
Yeah.
But of course, everybody makes aspirin, so what the heck? So no, nothing good came out of IG Farben.
Very interesting, though.
It is interesting.
There,
And Jason, that shows the more nefarious side of fluoride and its uses. Mm-hmm. But now, let me ask you this before we get to the topic that you wanted to talk about. Do you really think that when it comes to fluoride, I don't know how to quite word this, but I'm gonna give it my best. Do the risks outweigh the benefits, or vice versa? Do you see that there's more risk to fluoride than there is benefit? What do you think?
Yeah, I think there's definitely more risk to it. Again, it's not. How do I describe it? It's not like it has gross outward effects. Its effects are very subtle, but they're there, and that's the problem. It's you're going to be exposed to something for potentially a lifetime, and then it's going to cause effects as you get older and cause things to happen that it's also going to be very difficult to trace in a sense. So
right.
If you get cancer for some reason, you get bone cancer. Well, nobody's necessarily going to link it to fluoride exposure for 60, 70 years.
Oh, right.
They're just going to think it's old age. So that's the problem with this stuff, is that the risks definitely outweigh the benefits.
Okay. Now is there anything else you want to add about fluoride before we start talking solutions?
Yeah, one more thing that I wanted to add about it was the disruptions to puberty that it causes. One study that the Fluoride Action Network actually has that you can download for free. It's a pretty extensive study. Was conducted on guinea pigs, and what it shows is that fluoride exposure has kind of a bipolar, I'll use the word bipolar effect when it comes to puberty disruption. In males, it delays the onset of puberty, and in females, it accelerates the onset of puberty. It also affects sperm counts. It lowers sperm counts, and it also, when you get into a cellular level, it affects cellular motility, so the ability of a cell to move, and it does affect sperm's ability to swim, and it affects mitochondria all over the body and disrupts mitochondria. Mitochondria are what produce the energy for the cell to function. So in males, it's going to reduce your fertility. And in females, where it's going to accelerate the onset of puberty, it's going to increase fertility, but it's also going to then, therefore, you're going to have a concurrent earlier onset with, say, menopause and the problems that can occur as women get older. And it's been shown, in animal studies, but, anecdotally, as after reading these studies and after looking at a few other smaller studies, and then, realizing, I think anecdotally I'm seeing these effects because we're seeing girls now, and we work in a relatively average-sized town, but we're starting to see girls who are developing faster. But, even when you're talking their teeth, I've seen girls in the 14 to 16-year-old age range that have wisdom teeth coming in. That's not supposed to happen until they're 18, 19, 20.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's got to be having an effect that we can see anecdotally. Now, I'm sure it's also combined with bisphenol A, other toxins in the environment. I'm sure it's a cumulative load effect that these things are having. And I have to say, you do see some boys that, you know, they do seem to be sort of, shall I say, delayed onset of puberty. But, you know, again, it's anecdotal. I can't, you know, put it out there as definitive proof.
Right, of course not.
You know, but we're seeing things in the office.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this too, because you brought up a great example with when you talked about menopause. Well, one of the things that happen, you know, during and after menopause for a lot of women is osteoporosis, and osteoporosis. I guess one could say, would you say that there's any similarities between fluorosis of the bones and an osteoporosis condition, and could fluoride contribute to that?
Well, it actually contributes to osteosclerosis, which is a hardening of the bone, but again, it makes it more brittle.
Okay.
But yeah, you're right. If you go long enough and then you get into menopause, then yes, you would then see the opposite effect take place, and you would see an increase in osteoporosis.
See, Timmy, look at that. See?
Wow.
That's right. That's right. And all you have to do, folks, is put $1 in the slot, and out comes out your medical certificate. Hey, look at me. I'm ready. That's right. So if anybody needs a spleen replaced or anything like that, come on and see Dr. Joe.
He's got a Swiss Army knife, and he's ready.
That's right. I have a doctorate in quackery, I tell you. So now let's talk about some solutions to this. Okay, so say now there are people out there that are searching for fluoride-free alternatives, Jason. What can you recommend to the listeners? As a matter of fact, let's hold that thought, and we'll talk about solutions in the next break, because we're up against a break. So when we come back after the break, folks, we're going to talk about solutions to dental care using fluoride-free products. Now, some products are better than others, and Jason just so happened to test a whole array of different fluoride-free dental products. So when we come back, we'll talk about which ones are good for your teeth. We'll also talk about fillings, which fillings are better for you, and which ones may not be. So stay tuned. So much more to talk about as the Freedom Link continues on the Orion Talk Radio Network. It's Truth from North of the Border with Canada Live, featuring John and Ron, Sunday afternoons from 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Get a view of the truth from our northern neighbors as John and Ron team up to tell it like it is, right here on the Orion Talk Radio Network. Joe Joseph and Tim Watts here with our special guest, Dr. Jason Pujo, PujoDentistry.com. So we're talking solutions now, right? So now I'm a patient that comes in, Jason, and I say, hey, look, you know, based on what you tell me, I don't think it's a good idea that I use fluoride anymore. What are my alternatives?
Well, there's quite a few fluoride-free toothpaste on the market. But like I said, we had to test them out to see about the pH levels. And some of the pHs are in the acidic range, but also some of the regular toothpaste that use the pHs are in the acidic range. So anyway, we've got a bunch of them. Like I said, that we tested. One of the more common ones that's out there is Tom's of Maine. And that actually came in pretty good. That came in an 8 pH, which is pretty high. And that's what you're looking for. But you have to be careful. Again, let me see. The natural
pH is a good thing?
Yeah, higher pH is a good thing. More alkaline. So it's going to shut down the bacteria that cause cavities. And it's also going to just naturally promote calcium, the other phosphate minerals that are in your saliva already, to just osmose back into the tooth structure. So, but what I was going to say was you have to pick out specific Toms even, because there's Tom's natural anti-plaque, tartar control plus whitening, and that came in at an 8. But then we looked at another one that Tom's botanically bright whitening with bee propolis and xylitol, and that came in at a 5.8. So that's
holy moly! It's like battery acid. Yeah, I'll say it whitens your teeth. It strips a whole layer of enamel off. Yeah, sure, of course. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so So now that was the other end of the spectrum. Is there any brand out there that people can readily go find? I mean, in your search for these things, or for these different brands of toothpaste, would you say that one was better or more readily available than the others? And is there one in particular that you recommend?
I don't know about readily available. That might even be a regional thing. There's at least 5 from a brand called Jason that we could recommend. And then there's a German one, Weleda, and they had a couple of different toothpaste. They're on the expensive side. They're about $7 to $8 a tube, and they're small tubes, but they have some interesting flavors too. And again, they're in a good pH range. So no, we don't have any specific brand that we would recommend. Just a whole bunch of different products that we could say, you can try whatever you like. As far as flavors, they're different. They're good different, most of them. Well,
I know the one that we use. Now, we use the Toms of Maine, the one with the 8 pH. And now that one, the mint is a lot more natural mint flavor. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's not – it's almost like a peppermint oil.
It's not the sweet.
Yes, I don't know if everybody hears my wife talking, but that's the thing is she's breaking it down like Julia Child. Well, the taste is like this and that, and it's very palatable.
The toothpaste with fluoride tastes like candy.
That's right. Yeah, she said the fluoride toothpaste actually tastes like candy, which may in a sense be on purpose, Tim. To make it more attractive, especially to younger kids.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Get them to suck it down, easier to swallow too, I suppose. They like that taste.
Tom's does have a children's toothpaste. They call it Silly Strawberry, and it's a fluoride-free.
We see it in the stores. Now, where I'm at, the only Silly Strawberry they have is it contains fluoride. Oh. In this house, we all use the peppermint.
I think the best place to get them is online. We did our ordering through. I don't know if you want me to give me you want me to give the names of the companies.
Oh no, that's fine.
Okay.
Anyway, the easiest way for our listeners to be able to obtain things like this. So should they want to make that decision?
Okay, we ordered them both through LuckyVitamin.com and SwansonVitamin.com, and yes, we had to go to both to order the different toothpaste that we tested, including the ones that I'm not going to mention because the pH is too low. But, yeah, we had to order from both of those companies to get all the different toothpaste that we looked at.
See, I had no idea that there was that big of a variety when I read your report. I had no idea that there were that many varieties of fluoride-free toothpaste. So, I mean, it's encouraging that people at least have a choice between instead of just saying, well, you buy Toms of Maine or bust. That there's an actual array of fluoride-free toothpaste. Now, onward and upward to different subjects, because I have a question about fillings. And the first question about fillings is amalgam fillings. Mm-hmm. Are they dangerous? And what can you tell us about them? And do you use them anymore?
Well, I stopped using them back in 2004. But it really wasn't because of the mercury, although, yes, I don't want to put any mercury in anybody's mouth anymore. Elemental mercury in a silver filling is very different from, say, biologically bound mercury in toothpaste. That's the example that they give us in dental school, is that you get more mercury out of tuna fish. Excuse me, did I say toothpaste? I meant tuna fish sandwich.
Yes.
Yes. That's the example in dental schools. You get more mercury out of a tuna fish sandwich than you get out of the outgassing from your silver fillings.
Wow.
But, again, they don't mention the fact that your elemental mercury in your silver filling is very different from the mercury that's bound in with proteins and amino acids in a tuna fish sandwich or any other fish source. So,
Okay, so what does that mean to somebody that really has no background in this? Does that mean that the type of mercury in an amalgam filling is more dangerous than that of the mercury that you find in tuna fish?
Yes, it's going to be more dangerous. And there are people out there that do have more of a sensitivity to silver fillings and to the mercury than your average person. Your average person, again, it's going to be one of those things that's very difficult to see any effects. But there are some people that have a sensitivity to it. So, they're the ones that are going to show that there's a problem with it. But when you look at it on a cellular level, even extremely minute amounts of mercury are going to cause nerve death. They're going to cause a neuron to basically open up and unwrap. And nobody needs that.
No, nobody certainly does need that. So what are people's options when it comes to fillings? Instead of what alternatives do they have to the silver filling if they want an alternative to it?
Okay. Well, it's actually quite common. Most of us, I'd say it is the majority of dentists now. We don't even place silver fillings anymore. Majority of us are using different white fillings or composite materials. Mm-hmm. The basis for these materials are a resin, which is the binder, and either a combination of silica and zirconia. That's the product that I use. It's very tough, very durable. You can polish it, make it nice and smooth. It feels like tooth. You're not going to tell the difference. Or older ones, which are just silica. But at any rate, that's your alternative, and they do work very well. The studies now, they've been around a long time. The studies now show that they do work as well or better than silver filling. There really is no need to place a silver filling at this point. What else can I say about it?
How about now? My brother had Skyped me, and he asked about glass ionomers or something.
Glass ionomer. Glass ionomer would be a good material. I have used it, and I guess I'll save the rest for the other side. I can hear the pumping.
Please. Yeah, by all means. We'll talk about glass ionomer fillings when we come back, and then we'll get into a little different subject matter. We'll see just how awake Jason is when we get back from these messages. Don't go away.
Run faster, jump higher, and hit harder than anyone alive.
Guys, it's great patriots like and activists like Tim Watts that puts out great websites like News Focus, theamericantruthnetwork.com, and September Coup. So go visit those sites today and learn and look at all the research that he's done. Years and years of research. There's a reason why I keep this guy around.
You're trying to get me in trouble, aren't you? I just got those sites back up. It's like the 5th time I've been hacked. I just literally got them up just a couple of minutes ago.
I just said keywords, so I'm just waiting to see how long it takes. Let's see how good those countermeasures are, Timmy.
Yeah, exactly.
Our guest tonight is Dr. Jason Pujo, PujoDentistry.com. And Timmy, you just brought up a great line of questioning during the break about teeth whitening. Can you get into that with Jason a bit?
Yeah, that's something that, to me, I've always been a little on the fence with. I've got immune system, problems, so I don't want to take any fluoride or anything bad. But then when I see all these whiteners, Jason, they come out with these whiteners. They'll whiten your teeth pretty quick, and to me, it just seems like, is there something in these things that is going to harm the enamel, that's going to harm the tooth? How safe are whiteners?
They're pretty safe. To use it as directed. That's not something you want to do all the time, but there's nothing that causes any damage to the enamel. It's not going to strip the enamel off. It is strictly peroxide, and the oxygen from the peroxide goes in. It breaks down non-structural hydrogen bonds inside the tooth structure and changes the color of the tooth. It removes the yellow, and that's the best. Those are the best kind of teeth to whiten is yellow. The gray stains or something like that, it's more difficult to get out. It takes longer. But for most people, it takes about 2 weeks. The best way to do it is with a take-home type kit that you wear the little soft clear tray. You use the product over a couple of weeks, and it does work. And then once the tooth is whitened, it's more responsive to a touch-up. So for most people, once you whiten your teeth with a take-home type kit, it's going to last anywhere from 2 to 4 years before you have to touch up your teeth again.
Now,
Really?
I see some new ones out. Now, there's some new ones out there advertising. They're like, these on-the-go ones. You carry in your purse, and you can, I can't remember what the time is, like 30, 40 minutes or something, but I can't imagine that's real safe, is it?
Well, I think what your biggest problem with that is you're going to get sensitivity because of the concentration of the peroxide. Beyond a certain amount, it's going to make it sensitive. And it's a funny sensitivity. It's not that it makes it more cold sensitive. It makes it achy. So, I would steer away from anything, pretty much anything over the counter. Although I will say that the little strips ones that have been advertised for several years, they do work. So if somebody wanted to use something like that for a quick whitening treatment, they could do it, and they do work. There's nothing inherently wrong with them. But if you want best results, you're better having a set of custom trays made up and getting a professionally dispensed whitening product.
Wow.
Good.
But I also would steer away from, like I was saying to Tim during the break, steer away from the in-office type systems, the lasers or the bright light type treatments. We tried one of the bright light type treatments. We've looked at all the research. They really don't work. What you see is mostly a dehydration effect that lasts anywhere from a couple of days, 2 to 3 days, and then as the tooth rehydrates, it goes back to the color. Because if you were to just sit around with your teeth exposed to the air, they're gonna whiten just from dehydration. But they're going to rehydrate pretty quickly, and then they're going to go back to where they were. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow, I never knew that.
No, I had no idea.
So if you have like a wedding to go to, and you want to whiten your teeth,
yeah, just don't like salivate for about 3 days, and you'll be just fine.
Just mouth breathe, and they'll look lighter.
That's pretty cool. The little tips and tricks from Dr. Pujo's.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting little thing right there. I had no idea. So how porous? When your enamel's intact there, how porous is your tooth? I mean, for it to be able to absorb water, I guess most people don't think about it as that. You know what I mean? It's these hard structures in your mouth that you chew with. You don't really think about what it absorbs too much. So how porous are teeth, or how susceptible to damage, or is there varying levels?
I'd say there's varying levels depending on, how well somebody's tooth forms.
Yeah.
Teeth are pretty tough. They're pretty solid. They're not really going to pick up much of, anything deep set in. Tobacco will stain teeth. It will change the color of teeth, definitely. But most of what you see from food is strictly surface stains. And as far as changing color over time, teeth naturally darken over time. Teeth will naturally yellow on their own. It's just a process that they go through. I don't even think we fully understand why that happens, but as you get older, your teeth do darken.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That is very interesting information, folks. And again, PujoDentistry.com, anybody in the New England area that is looking for a dentist that gives you options, gives you choices, Jason's your man. So check it out. Now, onward to different subjects, Jason, because, just talking about dentistry when you're on the Freedom Link, you don't want to just do that now, do you? So let's talk about some other stuff that may be going on that can directly affect you as well. How does Obamacare, if any, does it affect you as a dentist at all?
I think where the problem is more going to come in, or the effect is more going to come in, is going to be on the insurance side, but we really don't know yet. When the bill got passed, and Nancy Pelosi let us read it, I did go through it. I did as best as I could scan the entire thing. And as far as dentistry is concerned, it does call for establishment of pilot programs to expand dental auxiliaries, or what would be called a expanded duty hygienist, basically. Somebody it would be the equivalent of a nurse practitioner for dentistry, but right now at this stage they're listed in as pilot study programs. So we really don't know what it's going to entail for dentistry at this point. The dental, I'll call them the dental establishment, they're pushing right now for more access to care issues and for making making it easier for people to see the dentist, and basically expansion of welfare, expansion of coverage programs like that.
Well, I will say
we really
this.
don't know.
I will say this, that dental insurance has taken a giant crap over the last 25 years or so. I mean, I remember, as a child, going to the dentist, and my folks, it was 100% covered.
Yeah.
The same thing with fillings, they were 100% covered. Same thing if you needed a root canal, it was 100% covered. At one point in time, that's the way it was. And now, I mean, if you compare, let's just say, medical insurance to dental insurance, there's a tremendous difference between the two. I mean, as far as what's covered and the levels of coverage. Do you see any improvement or anything coming down the pipe based on anything you've heard about that?
No. If anything, it's going to potentially get a little worse as far as coverage is concerned.
Well, what does that mean to you? What does that mean to you as a dentist? I mean, does that mean that it's harder to get clientele, or?
No, what it means to us is it's we have to take a massive cut in compensation for what we're getting from the insurance company. And facts are facts. I mean, you've got to run a business. You've got people to pay. You've got you've got bills to pay. And if you can't do that, you're not in business anymore. You don't have an office anymore. So, do you foresee
a crisis on the horizon with more and more doctors being forced to shutter their doors because of the cost of just doing business now? Do you see this as a potential crisis down the road?
It's possible. It's hard to say. It's really hard to say. I don't even think anybody's done the numbers to see what the future holds here.
Yeah, I just know from the perspective of let's take a look at 25 years ago to today, malpractice. Look at how many malpractice suits there are now compared to 25 years ago. I mean, it's unbelievable, and as a result, malpractice insurance has gone through the roof. From a dental perspective, I don't know how you stack up against the medical side, but
yeah, it's nothing compared to what the physicians have to pay.
Well, I'm sure that's the case, but at any rate, the doctors of all different, whether you be a physician or a dentist, are seeing your costs just go through the roof.
Oh, yeah.
Much like every other American out there. Inflation's horrible, jobs are horrible, everything's horrible in this country. But, oh, yes, we're recovering, folks. Yeah. It's fragile, but we're still moving forward.
Yeah,
speaking of moving forward, we got the last segment coming up, folks. We'll be right back after these messages.
And may be called upon by concentrating your thought energies with definite purpose. Just concentrate, and the hours will be yours.
Folks, listen to The Conscious Resistance with your host, Derek Brose, Sunday afternoons from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Get the information you need to know to defend your rights in your country. The Activist Report, Sunday from 3 to 5, only on the Orion Talk Radio Network. Joe Joseph here, along with Tim Watts and our special guest, Dr. Jason Pujo, PujoDentistry.com. And, I forgot to bring this up during the last segment, and I want to finish our thought on this. And then Timmy's got a wonderful story to tell everybody. I think you'll be thoroughly entertained by this. But, Jason, we were talking about ionomer fillings. And what are the dangers to ionomer fillings?
Well, glass ionomer fillings have fluoride in it. They're designed to be like a slow, sustained release.
Nice.
Application of fluoride to kill bacteria and to help strengthen tooth structure. But it's in glass ionomer materials. So if you're getting a filling done and you want to avoid that, make sure you talk to your dentist about it. Make them do a traditionally bonded filling instead. And then the other thing, if we're going to touch on this one more time, a couple of years ago it came up about bisphenol A in white filling materials. okay, there was one brand of sealant, sealants for kids to protect their teeth. There was one brand of sealant that had bisphenol A in it, and that was it. It was not widespread in the industry. It was not widespread in the dental materials industry, so rest assured that you're not going to get bisphenol A in your white filling because you don't want mercury from your silver filling. So,
oh, very good. And and again, that's something good to know, because what you'll get is a lot of fear mongering on the other side. Why they found bisphenol A in the sealant for kids? Oh God, we're gonna all die. No, and really what it is, folks, is just like Jason said, they found it in one brand of that sealant. Now that doesn't mean that all sealants are bad. That just means that one brand was bad.
Yeah, it was too, is the active word, because it's not in it anymore. So really nothing on the market. Yeah.
Well, good information to know. Timmy, regale us with your story. Hold on, let me get the campfire started.
Do you really think that Jason needs this?
No, by all means, go ahead.
I know this is nothing that would ever happen on Jason's watch because he's a very competent dentist. But I just want to tell you folks that when you lay in the chair, this is something that happened to me one time. And, it probably, as I think about it now, maybe the guy had me too far up in the chair, and that's what created the slide. Well, anyway, here's what happened. I'm laying in the chair. It's shortly after 9/11. They're working on me, on my teeth, and I'm thinking about 9/11, actually. I'm thinking about the towers falling and all the kind of stuff that's going through my head. The next thing you know, I'm thinking, I'm about to die or I'm on my way to the hospital because the dentist has just dropped his appliance into my throat. And I'm thrashing in the chair, and I'm gagging like crazy, and he's yelling at me. He goes, hold still, hold still, hold still. And he grabs some forceps, and I'm trying not to gag, but I've got this instrument lodged right in the middle of my windpipe. And suddenly my gag reflex goes off, and I'm like, it feels like it's about to go farther down. I'm really going to choke to death. At the same time, he's pulling up with the forceps. I don't know, but for the grace of God, he was able to grab this thing. But something to think about when you're laying in the dental chair next time. Again, I think, looking back, he probably had me up just a little too high where it was just that straight slide right down.
Well, that's what you normally. That's what you get, Timmy, for having the Pied Piper work on your teeth. I mean, heck, he's dropping his instrument down your throat. I mean, that's horrible.
Yeah.
What was he like, playing you an interlude before he went and got you?
Yeah, it was all those bad.
Hardy, har har. Okay, thank you, folks.
9/11 thoughts I was having.
Yeah, it could be. Who knows? Unbelievable. So any recommendations as we wrap up the show, Jason? Is there anything that you want to put out to the listeners? Anything that you haven't put out tonight that you might want to put out? It doesn't even have to do with dentistry. It could have to do with anything else. Just anything in particular. Anything you want to... The floor is yours, my friend.
Well, let's see. We've been teasing the Second Amendment all night long, so I would urge people to get involved on that front too.
Yes.
Make sure we keep our rights intact, and prevent the powers that be from taking away our fundamental God-given rights. Especially the right to defend ourselves and keep tyranny in check. Get involved.
My area. I wish you were in my area.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
I would say, and getting involved, little financial support for some of these organizations that are the ones that are in there doing the lobbying, it would be a good, easy start.
Are there any good ones? Give us some good ones.
Yeah, I did join the Gun Owners of America about a year ago, and got a life membership. That's about $500. That's $500. I know that's a little bit on the high side for some people, but an alternative is the Second Amendment Foundation. And for those that are unfamiliar, the Second Amendment Foundation brings lawsuits against governments, and like the lawsuit that was brought against Washington, D.C., the lawsuit that was brought against Chicago, those were the Second Amendment Foundation that was involved with those. A life membership with them is only $150, folks. It's short money to help defend your rights. So it's a good way to get involved without, it's a good basic way to get involved and help fund these people that are out there in the trenches doing the work.
Yeah, and especially up in Massachusetts. I mean, you're talking, you got some pretty strict gun laws on that up there, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have what was in place before or during the Clinton gun ban era, the assault weapons ban. Those are still in place up here.
Wow.
So there's a lot of stuff that we just can't buy in this state. You have your limited 10-round magazine. And if you don't want to see that come back to wherever you're living, Yeah,
you gotta defend your rights.
Yeah, and you got to talk to your Congress people. You got to talk to your state reps. You got to talk to your state senators. Write them, talk to them, especially the local ones. They're the ones that you're going to have the most effect on.
Yep.
And they're pretty receptive. They like a well-written, well thought out conversation and discussion. Mm-hmm. If they're good people, they do like that. And
if you just go in ripping on them, you send them this just an antagonistic letter. It's like that hits the circular file right away. So good advice, Jason.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you're if you're in New York and your senator is Chucky Schumer, I mean, you might.
Well, then, yeah, I mean that
letter, but
yeah, or perhaps a nail bat, or something like that. Just bring it alongside you as you go into the office. Oh, what are you here for? Oh, nothing in particular. No,
yeah.
As you have a nervous twitch with your leg, you're just sitting there. No, but you're right, though. You have to get involved. You have to get active. And the biggest thing to understand, folks, is that freedom is not free by any sense. It takes a lot of time, and in this day and age, it takes a lot of money to defend. Especially if you start talking legal channels, filing lawsuits in court. All these types of things cost a lot of money, and these organizations that go out and fight these battles need your support. So Jason's absolutely right. The other thing I would say, Jason, is to keep doing what you're doing, because change doesn't really start top down. It always goes bottom up. If you want good change comes from the bottom. Very seldomly, if ever, do you ever see it come from top down. So very, very good that you're spreading this, at the ground level, and hopefully changing people's opinions about fluoride and about the dangers of certain things that have become acceptable in this society, and maybe make them question things. It's weird how, and Timmy, I'm sure you can attest to this, how just talking to people about one subject actually springboards them into another.
Oh yeah. When you're researching one thing, you always end up finding something else. That's been the way it has been for me, for you. I know for everybody that does research, you always just stumble upon stuff.
Well, you just brought up a great point. In researching fluoride, you stumbled upon IG-farbin. Mm-hmm. Well, then once you start, oh, wow, what's IG-farbin? Yeah. Oh, wow. You start looking at IG-farbin.
The whole thing starts to unravel for you.
I mean, that's like the Death Star of the Nazi, the whole Nazi empire.
Yeah. When you see IG-farbin behind it, and then Colgate and Kellogg and DuPont and all these companies in bed with IG-farbin, it's like, wow. Okay, something to think about.
Unbelievable. Folks, again, Jason's website is pujodentistry.com. Is there anything, any final thoughts, Jason?
Spell that for him, though, real quick.
Yeah, yes, it's Pujo Dentistry, Pujo Dentistry.com. So go there today, check it out. And again, if you're in the Massachusetts, in the New England area, by all means, I'm sure you can never have enough patients, Jason.
The patients are always welcome.
Yes, and believe me, he's one patient dentist. So make sure you get in there, and he'll give you the right information. He will give you the information that allows you to make an informed decision, which is something that I wish more doctors and dentists out there did. Instead of just giving you, the one side.
Yep. And on our website, I've got 2 write-ups that if people are going there to take a look, I've got a write-up that I did for fluoride and a write-up that I did on silver filling and filling materials. Those are ones that I put together myself. The rest of the website is mostly from our website provider. It's a company that specializes in dental office websites, but those 2 issues we had to go in and fix them. So,
well, fantastic, Jason. Thank you so much for joining me this evening, me and Tim. And, we'll have you back on real soon, because there's so much more to talk about, not just in terms of dentistry, but in medicine, and I'm sure people will love to hear from you in regards to your stance on different issues. Folks, we'll be back again tomorrow night, 9 p.m.